Nobody on set could have predicted the enthusiasm Sierra brought that day. Sharp, focused, and carrying something she didn't hesitate to use. The whisper began before she even walked. Croomy embers into the lounge, claiming she had been kept quiet all week, but making calls in the parking lot as if she was constructing a case. By the time she walked in the door, you could sense the shift. Eyes followed her. Conversations froze, and even Yandy put her phone down because everyone knew Sierra was going to let it all out today. But it wasn't only that she was prepared to talk. It was who she was going for. Mendeecees, the guy who had managed to keep his reputation intact despite the continual smoke around him, was now in her sights. And according to rumblings behind the scenes, she wasn't going to drop hints. She was prepared to unload. Sierra said, "She deserves the truth. And if I'm the one who has to give it to her, so be it." The cast had no idea how far she'd get, but they were about to find out. The room was already tense before Sierra walked in. But the second she went through that doorway, the mood shifted so dramatically, it was almost physical, and conversations, as usual, fell off in the middle of sentences. Laughter around the lounge table faded into a low murmur, and every head seemed to lean just slightly in her way. She wasn't rushing, and her energy came in, first measured. She took her sunglasses off with one hand, placed them inside her bag, and set the bag down on a chair like a flag. Mendeecees was across he leaned back in his seat next to Yandy, one arm thrown lazily over the back of her chair, and wore that tiny smirk he usually wears when the cameras roll, the one that suggests he's already chosen how this will look on film. Yandy was typing on her phone, pretending not to notice Sierra's arrival, but the subtle tightening of her spine gave her away. Nobody said anything as Sierra strolled over and took the seat immediately across from them. She didn't speak immediately away, instead reaching into her bag again, pulling out her phone, and setting it face down on the table in front of her. The motion was Rashida shuffled in her chair, crossing and uncrossing her legs. It was minor, yet it was enough to cause Bambi, who was seated off to the side, to lift her eyebrows and lean forward slightly. Sierra's eyes moved from Sierra to Mendeecees like she was reading the air before she decided whether to stay quiet or jump in. "You've been real comfortable," Sierra finally murmured, her voice low but crisp. "Too comfortable." Mendeecees inclined his head, his smirk broadening slightly. "What specifically do you feel comfortable about?" "About lying?" Sierra responded without hesitation, assuming that no one will check you because she is seated next to you. She nodded towards Yandy, finally looked up from her phone, her expression intentionally blank. Mendeecees looked at Yandy as if they'd already had a private talk about this. "No, not this happens again," Sierra said. "This is new. Hey, and you're going to want to pay attention because I'm not talking about some old stories from 2 weeks ago. And before you even dare to say, 'Yeah, I've got proof.'" That drew everyone's attention. Spice ceased. She stirs her drink, her gaze fixed on Sierra. Bambi laid her phone down completely and rested her elbows on the table. Kirk attempted to hide his curiosity with a light laugh, but it went flat. The silence. Yandy Wila leaned forward slightly to reduce the distance between her and Sierra. "Proof of what?" she asked. "Proof?" Sierra asked, tapping her phone twice before unlocking the screen. "That individual he told you about, and everyone else he cut off, he is still talking to, not simply chatting to her, but asking her to be quiet, not to stir things up, and to continue playing along." Manny adjusted in his chair and leaned forward. "You are spinning this," he said. "You do not know the complete story." Sierra answered calmly, "I know exactly what I heard, and so will she." She turned the phone to Yand. The camera team slanted slightly, hoping to capture Yandy's reaction without disrupting the moment. She looked at the TV for a few moments, her eyes skinned whatever was in front of her. Her jaw stiffened. "What is this supposed to be?" she inquired without looking up. "It's a voice note," Sierra said, "from him, dated 2 weeks ago. And before you ask, no, it has not been changed or chopped to make it seem worse. It is precisely how it was emailed to me." Andes shook his head, chuckling quietly as if he couldn't believe what was going on. "Did you actually come in here with something you don't even understand? You mean the context in which you informed her and the rest of us that you had blocked this woman months ago?" Sierra responded. "Because that's the context you're talking about. We've all got it." Yand eventually looked up from his phone and locked eyes with him. "Did you tell her that you blocked her?" "Sure," He admitted because I did back then. I am not talking to her like way anymore. Sierra interrupted saying, you just told her to stay quiet. How come you're not talking to her? The hush that ensued was piercing. Rashida exhaled. Through her nose, she crossed her arms. Spice slumped back in her seat, keeping her gaze fixed on Mendeecees. Yandai did not relocate. Is she elbows on his knees? Then maybe you need to hear the rest before deciding what to modify. Sierra responded, oh, there's more, with a harsh tone of suggestion, but we can talk about it when you're ready to stop acting like you're the victim. Here, for a moment, no one spoke. The weight of what remained unsaid lingered in the air like a storm cloud, and everyone in the room knew it was only a matter of time before it burst open. Mendeecees' knee bounced as he sat forward, elbows on his thighs as if he were trying. Must maintain his composure without revealing it. The cameras were locked. The remark struck like a slap. Sierra raised her brow and leaned back. Nobody really matters. You told that woman enough to have her email me receipts. You cared enough about her to beg her to be quiet. Rashida sat forward, her voice low. It's messy. It's been chaotic, Sierra remarked. The only change is that it's no longer just whispering. Mendeecees stared toward the door, as if he was pondering whether to simply walk out, but instead, he sat back. He crossed his arms. The smirk was gone totally. So, what is your endgame here? Do you want her to leave me? You want to permanently destroy my life? Sierra said slowly, my goal is for her to understand who she is dealing with. She has the freedom to decide what happens next. Yandi's gaze remained fixed on Mendeecees. So, you admit that you are still in contact. He shifted in his seat again, taking a brief breath. I acknowledge I had a conversation, but it wasn't what she said, making it sound like, then play it, Sierra instructed. Let her hear everything from your phone right now. Mendeecees froze. The plea hung in the air, and his inaction spoke volumes. Spice leaned. She leaned back, cursing beneath her breath. If it had been innocent, he'd have played it already. Bambi gave a slight nod, his gaze tightening on him. Yandi's voice lowered. Why don't you play it? Because it isn't worth it, he said hurriedly. It's only going to make matters worse. Worse. For whom? Sierra asked again. He didn't answer. The anxiety was a live thing now, seeping into every area of the room. A producer shuffled near the doorway, but did not enter. Everyone understood that cutting the cameras now would be tough to explain afterward. Sierra took her phone and put it back in her bag. I am not here to dispute with you. I'm here to make sure she's not the only one in the room who knows what's actually going on. And you think you're some sort of hero for that? Mendeecees asked, his tone rougher now. No, she responded, but I'm not the coward in this story either. Yandi leaned back, folded her arms over her chest, and stared at him as if she was trying to memorize every micro-emotion. You've had your chances, she remarked calmly. So many chances. And I've told you the truth, he insisted. You've told me your version of it, she corrected. It's not the same thing. There was another long gap, as if everyone was waiting to see if he'd try to explain himself again. However, he did not use any single quotations. Bambi broke the silence, muttering almost to herself. She's correct. The version and the truth are not necessarily same. Mendeecees gave her a look. Stay out of it. It is too late for that. Bambi responded, leaning back in her chair. The air in the room seemed dense. Nobody was moving too quickly. Nobody raised their voice. But everything was on the verge of something bigger. Spice's eyes flickered to the cameras, then returned to Yandi. So what happens now? Spice questioned Yandi. Could you please respond immediately? She looked at Sierra and then at Mendeecees. Now I guess I need to decide whether I've been loving the man I assumed you were or were the man you have become. The weight of that hit hard. Mendeecees seemed to want to answer but didn't sure where to begin. Sierra stood. She rose slowly and deliberately, sweeping her eyes across the table before turning toward the door. When you're ready for the rest, let me know, she murmured over her shoulder. Because there is more, and this time, I'm not sitting on it. She went out, leaving the room silent. The echo of her heels carries the tension with her. Yand, why didn't you look away? Is she lying? He didn't respond. His quiet was the loudest sound in the room. Sierra heard a small click as the door closed behind her. However, given how sharply it slashed through the air, it could have easily been a gunshot. Nobody spoke. Nobody even moved. It seemed as if the room had entered a strange state of standoff. Everyone is waiting for someone else to make the first move. Mendeecees sat still, his hands gripped together as if he were holding them still with force. Yandy had not moved either, but the weight of her gaze was clear. Her steely, unblinking stare was fixed on him. The team scarcely exhaled, knowing that we were catching something raw enough to make the edit without needing any additional push. Mendeecees exhaled. Me. The room became still again. Even Kirk, who had been peacefully drinking his drink, paused mid-dash. Mendeecees, he opened his mouth, but the sound that came out was more like a sigh than a word. You are acting as if this is the worst thing I have ever done. You don't know what the worst thing is until you see it from my perspective, she remarked. Until you find yourself sitting here thinking how many times you've been told only half of a story. He gazed down at the table, his fingers lightly tapping on the wood. RASHE shifts in her chair, staring at the door where Sierra had gone. You think she's really going to let this sit until next time? No, Spice answered, stated instantly. She's probably already talking to someone about the rest. Bambi reclined back, and if she has any receipts, she will place them somewhere visible, not just here. Mine scratched his temples, his voice lowered. This is precisely why I did not want to feed into it. You guys are acting as if a 2-minute voice note is the entire story of my existence. Yandy stated that it is not the entire narrative, but rather a portion of it. Hey, the section I'm seeing does not match what you've been telling me. He finally met her gaze. So you're simply going to believe her? Over me? She said. I am going to believe what I hear with my own ears. Bambi smirked faintly, and what she heard did not sound like someone who was finished with the other woman. His head snapped towards her. You've been waiting for me to fall, haven't you? Bambi shrugged. You're doing a good enough job on your own. The crew noticed a flare of heat in his gaze before he glanced aside. The tension was heavy now, loaded with personal history, petty side comments, and something deeper that had yet to be named. Yandy stood abruptly, pushing her chair back. I'm getting some air. Yandy. Wait, he muttered, standing halfway before being halted by a raised hand. Don't, she said. Just do not follow me. The door opened and closed behind her, leaving him standing at he was in the center of the room, with everyone looking at him. He sank back into his chair and exhaled sharply. RASHEA folded her arms. So, what's next for you? Move, he repeated nearly to himself. My plan is to get ahead of this before she returns with more. Spice raised an eyebrow. And how are you going to do that? She's got the heat right now. I'll speak with her, he remarked off camera. Bambi giggled under her breath. Yeah, because that's worked out so beautifully for you thus far. He ignored her and took out his Yandy leaned against the wall, arms folded, but he didn't dial the phone. Instead, he stared at the screen, as if he were working out his next line. A producer asked softly if she wanted to cease filming for the day, but she shook her head. No, I want people to see this exactly how it is happening. Back inside, Kirk eventually spoke up. Look, man, all I'm going to say is this. She comes back in, and you're still dancing around. You're done. Mendeecees' jaw clenched. I'm not dancing. Then prove it, Kirk urged, because right now it appears you're just waiting for the storm to pass. Yandy came back inside, her eyes burning, but her stride steady, as if on cue's command. She walked straight to her chair, sat down, and faced him directly. I'm not here to play detective, she replied, her tone firm but chilly. Keep making decisions for me about what I should know. That ends today. Mendeecees leaned forward with his hands clasped. And if I tell you everything, what happens? Then I determine if I can live with it, she said. But if you hold back again, even once, you will not have to. I wonder where we stand. You will know. The cameras showed the way he gulped hard before nodding slowly. All right, whispered calmly. That's all right. But no one in the room, including him, felt the conversation was over. Mendeecees ki anan jokas shaved compatit squap cob patit high shaved high as in deer say table ki tariff dika unlan k beach. Say gap banayakut jin raha ho virus and apne nazar Yandy pikai awaz hulk leakin wisa his harlafs ko kinch corona padra ho mayas kiyuzan kaha wihis tamso rahiho linhi muta is chapanga mus circus ban Yandy surf dika tum mudside picardia uwabia. Mandesha main kosha bat honk ratha spice napni kursi ch jet kar kaha mito abai to abalo maindas napni hoth jadli ankain darwazi ki tarif gaji sierra kabi bwapasaye shaki howo reunion kibad reach out ke rahi fogus piaksa puj rahi hain. Ma kaha chupri ra internet pakik mat dala ekbar wangaya tawapis nahi abin sada sakya tamad mit kar rehiho connection bonaraka maindas jerry sansli maji kara or tumi mayai la yandi nyaski and ken maka we hai lagda lag ra to apne riem ki. Lodge and here main rak kirkni Rashid ki tooth deka his praho kihim nika niko yogu niko shinkayasio aki ham nika lean Rashida niba sila dio yahi porasun mandis ni apni hoth just hubolai or bot hiwo lad ke rahayas pays off for kari hain. Blogs podcasts ki nas kahaye refilis nahi gjai tosk words twist karen main kaha mat bishna text bambi kibo main shaka raw files ki shopka ka voicemails messages catch videos who ease the numerous disagreements record kayapa proof rak ron. Galat the yandi katra basto saa abadla likanuki anglin kagrip kursi partait hogaya kam mir sabs bare moments record ki mudge protect kanam par don cusing torrent kahamadera huada spice and sarila dia sab dart hain leak sab record nahi. Kart Rashidani puka woke rahi or aiga kai mendes